You wake up on the first day of January and feel that nothing has changed. The calendar may mark a new date. The people around you may be full of resolutions and renewed hopes, but inside your chest there exists a weight that doesn't disappear with the turning of clock hands. It's as if you were watching a theatre play, where everyone performs enthusiasm for new beginnings, while you remain seated in the audience, observing with an exhaustion that goes far beyond physical fatigue. It's the exhaustion of existing, of carrying the weight of being yourself every day, of waking up and needing to face again the reality of being alive when life seems to have lost its flavor, color, meaning. You've already tried to convince yourself that this year would be different. You've made lists of changes. You've promised yourself transformations that never came, and now you look at another new year with the same sensation of being trapped in a labyrinth with no exit, where each corridor leads only to another identical corridor. Franz Kafka understood this sensation better than anyone. This experience of being alive but not really living, of existing but not being able to find a purpose that justifies the daily journey of getting up, breathing, continuing. If you've made it this far, if these words touch something deep inside you, it's because you're not alone in this difficult journey of understanding what it means to exist when existence seems to have lost its shine. This channel was created exactly for people like you, who feel deeply, who question, who seek meaning in a world that often seems absurd and incomprehensible. Here you'll find not easy answers or forced optimism, but a genuine understanding of this complex and often painful human experience that is being alive. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification, because together we're going to explore these profound questions that move the human soul. We're going to find beauty, even in melancholy, meaning even in the apparent nonsense of life. And if this content resonates with you, leave your like, because that helps me continue creating this space of understanding and acceptance for everyone who feels as you feel. You don't need to carry this weight alone. The exhaustion of existing isn't a weakness or a character flaw. It's a natural response from a sensitive soul that encounters the overwhelming complexity of being alive in a world that often seems built for people who don't feel things with the intensity that you feel. It's as if you were a plant that needs a specific type of soil and light, but was planted in a garden that offers completely different conditions, making your survival possible, but your flourishing seem impossible. Kafka described this sensation through his surreal narratives, where characters find themselves trapped in incomprehensible situations, surrounded by systems that don't make sense, trying to navigate through a reality that seems to have its own secret rules that nobody bothered to explain. The man who wakes up transformed into an insect in the metamorphosis isn't just a fantastic metaphor. It's the literal representation of how many of us feel when we wake up every day, transformed into something we don't recognize, trying to function in a world that wasn't made for our new way of being. When the new year arrives, society bombards us with the idea that we should be excited, renewed, ready to start over with energy and optimism. But for those who are already exhausted from carrying the weight of their own existence, this social pressure becomes another layer of misunderstanding and isolation. It's as if you are forced to participate in a party when all you want is to remain silent, processing the complexity of being alive. The new year doesn't restart for those who are already tired of existing, because existential exhaustion doesn't follow the Gregorian calendar, doesn't obey social conventions, doesn't dissolve with fireworks and champagne. It exists in a different temporality, in its own rhythm that needs to be respected and understood, not ignored or forced to adapt to external expectations. This type of exhaustion has deep layers that go far beyond common physical or emotional fatigue. It's an exhaustion that's born from the apparently meaningless repetition of days, from the sensation of interpreting a character in a play whose script you never fully read. You wake up, execute the same actions, interact with the same people, fulfill the same obligations, and at the end of the day you wonder what all of this is for. What is the greater purpose that justifies this daily sequence of movements and decisions? It's as if you were an actor who forgot why you accepted the role, but continues on stage because you don't know how to exit without causing a collapse in the collective performance. Kafka explored this sensation through characters who find themselves trapped in infinite bureaucracies, administrative labyrinths where each door leads to another room with another official who can't help, who redirects to another person, creating an endless cycle of frustrated attempts to resolve issues that seem simple on the surface, but reveal absurd complexity when you try to navigate them. This is a perfect metaphor for how many of us experience daily life when we're tired of existing. Each simple task seems to unfold into multiple complications. Each social interaction demands energy we don't have. Each decision, however small, seems to carry disproportionate weight. The transformation that many seek in the new year presupposes that you have available energy for changes, that there exists within you a reservoir of motivation waiting to be accessed. But when you're genuinely tired of existing, when waking up is already an act of courage, the idea of transformation can sound like another impossible demand to fulfill. It's like asking someone who is drowning to learn new swimming styles. The priority isn't technique, it's managing to keep your head above water, and there's profound wisdom in recognizing this, in honoring the place where you are now, even if that place isn't comfortable or socially acceptable. And have you ever felt this weight of being alive without being able to find energy for transformations and new beginnings that everyone around you seems to embrace with ease? Have you ever caught yourself faking enthusiasm for changes, while inside all you felt was a deep exhaustion that you couldn't explain even to yourself? If you're going through this now, leave in the comments, "I understand this exhaustion." Your courage in sharing this might be exactly what another person needs to read today to feel less alone in this experience, so intimate and often misunderstood. Sometimes, the greatest transformation we can offer the world is simply witnessing another's experience with honesty and compassion. Existential exhaustion has a specific quality that differentiates it from other forms of fatigue. It's not just being tired of work, relationships, daily responsibilities. It's being tired of the very condition of being conscious, of having to constantly process reality, of being obligated to make decisions and form opinions about a universe that frequently seems chaotic and without clear direction. It's as if your consciousness were a muscle that can never rest completely, that is always active, always processing, always trying to find meaning in experiences that often seem absurd or contradictory. Kafka captured this experience through narratives where common logic doesn't apply, where characters find themselves in situations that defy any attempt at rational understanding. A man is arrested without knowing what crime he committed. Another tries to enter a castle that always seems beyond his reach. A third wakes up transformed into a monstrous creature and needs to deal with family reactions who can no longer recognize him. These stories aren't escapist fantasies. They're visceral representations of how it can feel to try to navigate through life when you're operating with a nervous system that processes reality differently from most people. The pressure to restart in the new year assumes there's something fundamentally wrong with who you are now, that your current version needs to be discarded or drastically modified so you can finally be well. But what if the problem isn't who you are, but rather the incompatibility between your sensitive and profound nature and a world that values superficiality and speed? What if the exhaustion you feel isn't a personal failure, but a natural response from a soul that needs more time, more silence, more space to process the complexity of human existence? There's a fundamental difference between exhaustion that comes from excess activity and exhaustion that comes from lack of meaning. The first can be resolved with rest and priority reorganization. The second is more complex because it arises from the perception that the activities filling your days don't connect with something greater, don't nourish the part of you that needs purpose and transcendence to feel alive. It's as if you were a plant receiving sufficient water and light to survive, but not the right kind of nutrients to actually grow and flourish. The modern world frequently treats melancholy and deep reflection as problems to be solved quickly, preferably with external solutions that promise immediate results. But there are wisdom traditions that recognize these states as necessary parts of the human journey, moments of pause and introspection that precede genuine transformations. The dark night of the soul, as mystics described, isn't a pathology to be cured, but a passage to be crossed with patience and self-compassion. Kafka understood that alienation and estrangement aren't accidents of modern life, but inherent characteristics of the human condition that became more visible in a society that lost many of its traditional rituals and meanings. When you feel disconnected and tired of existing, you're not failing as a person. You're responding honestly to a reality that is frequently fragmented and contradictory. Your sensitivity isn't a defect to be corrected. It's a capacity to perceive nuances and complexities that less sensitive people might ignore. The process of being tired of existing often includes an acute perception of time's passage and the apparent futility of many human activities. You might find yourself observing people around you busy with their routines and projects and feeling a profound disconnection from that directed energy. It's as if you could see through social performance and perceive the emptiness that often exists behind constant agitation. This perception can be isolating, but it can also be the beginning of a more authentic search for meaning and genuine connection. There's a cruel irony in the fact that when you most need understanding and support is exactly when you have the least energy to seek social connections. Existential exhaustion frequently comes accompanied by a sensation of speaking a different language from people around you, that your concerns and questionings are too deep or melancholic for casual conversations. You might feel like a foreigner in your own life, observing social rituals that seem to happen in a dimension parallel to your internal experience. Genuine transformation, when it happens for someone who is tired of existing, rarely follows conventional patterns of dramatic change and renewed optimism. It's more likely to be a gradual process of acceptance and integration, of finding ways to honor your deep and sensitive nature, while still being able to function in the practical world. It's learning to see your melancholy not as an obstacle to growth, but as a source of depth and authenticity that the world desperately needs. When Kafka wrote about characters trapped in incomprehensible systems, he was mapping the emotional territory of people who feel that life was presented to them as a game whose rules were never clearly explained. You might be doing everything right according to external standards and still feel like you're losing in a game you didn't choose to play. This sensation of mismatch isn't a character flaw. It's a natural response from a consciousness that questions the basic premises of the society in which it's inserted. The exhaustion of existing can also include a painful perception of your own mortality and the temporality of all human experiences. When you're in this state, it can be difficult to invest energy in projects and relationships because you're hyper-conscious that everything is impermanent, that all efforts eventually dissolve in time. This awareness of impermanence, while philosophically valid, can be paralyzing when it's not balanced with a capacity to find meaning and beauty in present moments, even knowing they're temporary. The journey of someone who is tired of existing frequently involves a process of deconstructing social expectations and reconstructing a more authentic relationship with themselves. It's as if you needed to completely dismantle the version of yourself that was built to please others and function in external systems, to then be able to discover who you really are when all these layers are removed. This process can be frightening and disorienting, but it can also be liberating in ways you can't anticipate when you're in the middle of deconstruction. One of the most challenging characteristics of existential exhaustion is that it can't be resolved only with external changes or willpower. You can change cities, jobs, relationships, and still discover that exhaustion traveled with you. Because it's not in your life circumstances, it's in the way you process and give meaning to the experience of being alive. This doesn't mean external changes are useless, but that they need to be accompanied by internal work of understanding and accepting your unique nature. Kafka had a particular ability to show how apparently simple situations can reveal themselves as labyrinthine when you try to navigate them with honesty and depth. A character who simply wants to resolve a bureaucratic problem finds himself lost in a system of circular references that never lead to real resolution. This is a perfect metaphor for how it can feel to try to resolve existential exhaustion through conventional methods. Each proposed solution seems to lead only to new complications. Each specialist consulted offers advice that doesn't address the root of the question. There's profound wisdom in learning to inhabit existential exhaustion without trying to desperately escape it or immediately transform it into something more palatable. Just as a plant needs periods of dormancy to prepare new growth, the human soul sometimes needs periods of pause and deep reflection that might seem unproductive or melancholic to external observers, but are essential for internal processes of integration and understanding. Your exhaustion might be signaling that you need a different type of spiritual and emotional nutrition than what's available in your current life. The relationship with time changes drastically when you're tired of existing. Days can seem simultaneously too long and too short. Long because each hour demands energy you don't have. Short because you can't invest in activities that would potentially give meaning to the time that passes. It's as if you were watching your life happen at a speed mismatched with your processing capacity, creating a constant sensation of being late or misaligned with the world's rhythm around you. The new year, with all its symbolism of renewal and possibilities, can intensify this sensation of temporal mismatch. While the world celebrates the opportunity to restart, you might feel trapped in a continuity that doesn't recognize artificial landmarks of change. Your internal transformation process, if it's happening, follows a different chronology, more organic and less predictable than the calendar cycles society uses to organize hopes and expectations. Franz Kafka understood profoundly that the human condition includes moments of profound isolation and questioning that can't be resolved with forced optimism or superficial changes. His characters frequently find themselves in situations where normal rules of logic and communication don't apply, where they need to navigate realities that seem to conspire against any attempt at clear understanding. This isn't a pessimistic view of life. It's an honest representation of the complexity and mystery that surround the experience of being conscious in a universe that frequently seems indifferent to human needs for meaning and connection. When you're tired of existing, it can be tempting to interpret this experience as evidence that there's something fundamentally wrong with you or your capacity to find joy and purpose in life. But it's equally possible that your exhaustion is an intelligent response to an environment that doesn't offer the type of stimulation and meaning your soul needs to prosper. Just as some plants need specific conditions to flourish, some people need specific types of experience and community to feel truly alive and engaged with existence. Metamorphosis, central theme in Kafka's work, isn't just a fantastic physical transformation. It's a representation of the universal experience of waking up one day and realizing you've become someone you don't recognize, who needs to learn to navigate the world with a new way of being that might be incomprehensible to people who knew you before. When you're tired of existing, you might be going through your own metamorphosis, slow and sometimes painful, where old versions of yourself are dying to give place to something new that hasn't completely defined itself yet. The process of integrating existential exhaustion as a legitimate part of human experience, instead of treating it as a problem to be solved quickly, can open unexpected spaces of depth and authenticity in your life. When you stop fighting melancholy and start exploring it with curiosity and compassion, you might discover it contains valuable information about who you are and what truly matters to you. Your sensitivity to absurdity and lack of meaning can transform into a unique capacity to create meaning and beauty in places where other people can't perceive these possibilities. The solitude that frequently accompanies existential exhaustion doesn't need to be interpreted only as negative isolation. It can also be a sacred space where you finally have the opportunity to know yourself without the constant interference and expectations of the external world. In this solitude, you can discover aspects of your nature that were suppressed or ignored when you were busy trying to conform to external patterns of functioning and success. It's a place where you can honor your internal complexity without needing to simplify it to make it palatable for others. Kafka showed through his narratives that the search for clear answers and definitive solutions frequently leads to more confusion and frustration. His characters who try to resolve apparently simple problems find themselves entangled in growing complexities that never reach satisfactory resolution. This can be a liberating metaphor for those who are tired of existing and feel pressured to find quick solutions for their internal state. Perhaps the question isn't to resolve exhaustion, but to learn to inhabit it in a more conscious and compassionate manner. The experience of being tired of existing can include increased sensitivity to hypocrisy and superficiality of daily social interactions. You might find yourself unable to participate in conversations that seem empty of real meaning, or to fake enthusiasm for activities that don't resonate with your deeper need for authenticity and purpose. This inability isn't antisocial or superior. It's a natural response from someone seeking connections and experiences more genuine than what's available in many conventional social contexts. The exhaustion of existing can also be a form of grief, a natural response to perceiving that many of the implicit promises of adult life didn't materialize the way you expected. You might be grieving the loss of a simpler and more optimistic version of yourself, or the loss of illusions about how the world works and what you can expect from it. This grief is necessary and valid, and trying to accelerate it or deny it can prolong the process of integration and acceptance that can eventually lead to a more mature and realistic relationship with life. There's a crucial difference between clinical depression, which may require medical and psychological intervention, and existential exhaustion that arises from incompatibility between your deep and sensitive nature and the demands of a society that frequently values speed, superficiality, and productivity above contemplation, depth, and meaning. Both can coexist, but it's important to recognize that not all psychological suffering is pathological, and that some forms of anguish are intelligent responses to circumstances that genuinely don't nurture human flourishing. When you're tired of existing, you might discover that traditional sources of motivation and inspiration don't work for you anymore. Speeches about following your dreams, being positive, or working harder can sound like irrelevant noise when you're operating with a more nuanced understanding of complexity and paradoxes inherent to human existence. This doesn't mean you've become cynical or hopeless. It means you need more sophisticated and authentic sources of inspiration that honor your capacity to perceive and process reality in all its contradictory dimensions. Kafka's work offers a form of validation for people who feel alienated from conventional narratives of success and happiness. His characters don't find easy resolutions or happy endings, but they continue trying, continue seeking understanding and connection, even when facing apparently insurmountable obstacles. There's profound dignity in this persistence, a form of courage that doesn't depend on optimism or success guarantees, but on the simple decision to continue exploring and questioning even when answers aren't clear. The process of learning to live with existential exhaustion can eventually lead to a more authentic and sustainable form of engagement with life. Instead of trying to force enthusiasm for things that don't genuinely resonate with you, you can learn to find meaning and even joy in activities and relationships that honor your contemplative and deep nature. You might discover that your sensitivity to absurdity and lack of meaning transforms into a special capacity to create and recognize moments of beauty and authentic connection. The new year might not restart for those who are already tired of existing, but this doesn't mean transformation is impossible. It means that genuine transformation for deep and sensitive people frequently happens in rhythms and ways different from the dramatic and optimistic changes our culture celebrates. It might be a gradual evolution of self-acceptance, a slow integration of aspects of yourself that were rejected or misunderstood, a patient development of ways of living that honor both your need for depth and your need to function in the practical world. The paradoxical beauty of the Kafkaesque condition is that by fully accepting the complexity and ambiguity of human experience, you can find a form of peace that doesn't depend on resolving all your questionings or the disappearance of all melancholy. It's the peace of someone who learned to inhabit their own nature with compassion, who can coexist with mysteries without needing to solve them immediately, who found ways to create meaning and beauty even amid the uncertainty and estrangement that characterize much of human existence. Your exhaustion of existing might be the beginning of a journey toward a deeper and more authentic way of being alive.